Hey guys, it's Trey back again with another video. And in the last video, we created our ticket form that's going to hold all our information for our ticket. And in today's video, I want to go ahead and I want to use the form to be able to create a ticket. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our app.js file and we're going to add in the ticket form and we're going to use it for creating a new ticket. All right, so before we get started, I want to make a couple of updates that I realized after, while setting up this video pretty much. The first thing is in our server.js file, we need to switch the order of this ID and this dot 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 ticket, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that from there and put it after the ticket, okay? So what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that our ID is actually put into this object. Because if we put the ID before the dot 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 ticket the way we were doing, this dot 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 ticket would overwrite this ID field and it'll come back as empty every single time that we save a new ticket. So if we do the ticket first and then write the ID in after, it'll show up in the response. Next up, what we want to do is we want to come to our ticket service .js file and we want to add in something in our create ticket function that's going to allow us to check. So basically, we want to add in something that's going to check if this request actually succeeded or not. Right now, we're just passing in whatever. So when we get, like, say, let's see, what do we return? If we send an error back, then we'll be passing that back, and we don't want to do that. If we get an error, we just want to go ahead and return nothing. Just return null. All right, so that we don't think we actually created a ticket. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an if check here after we get our raw response, and then we're going to say if the raw response dot status is not equal to 200. Okay, so we're checking if the status is not equal to 200 because if it's successfully created, it should send us back a 200 response. So if it's not, then we're just going to say console dot error, and then we'll say could not create ticket. All right, and then we'll just return null. Okay, so this is going to check, and now if we get a ticket, then it'll just return the ticket. But if the ticket doesn't actually create in the database, we'll return null, so we'll know, okay, well, we didn't actually create a ticket. All right, so that's what that's for. Next up, we need to go to our ticket form, and here when we're creating our state, we need to update our default values for priority and status. So we're going to come in. So we're going to say set T priority to priority if it's there, but if it's not there, then we're going to set it to the first value for priority in this option list, which in our case is low. So let me set it here. So we're going to say when we're creating this state, set it to priority if it's not null. If priority is null, then set it to low. All right. And we're going to do the same thing for status. So we're going to say if status is there, then set it to status. Otherwise, set it to whatever the first thing in status is, which for us is created. So we're going to set that to created. All right. So basically, this is going to make sure that if we are trying to create a new ticket and we don't actually change these values to actually set the T priority, it'll actually have a value there. Because if we were to just send a new create ticket and we don't change these values, these are null. So it's going to send it off to, send it as null, and we don't want to do that. We want to send it with an actual value. And I'll show you guys what I mean later. But that's pretty much it here. Next up is we can actually go to our app.js file and add in our ticket form. All right. So the first thing we need to do is obviously import our ticket form. So I'm going to say import ticket form and make sure you import it from the correct place. All right. Now that we have a ticket form, we need to go ahead and come down into our component here, and above our ticket list, and above the tickets header right here, we're going to go ahead and put in our ticket form. So we're going to say ticket form. Close it out immediately, and then remember that we need values for our ticket form. So if we go back to our ticket form, we can see that we have all of these props that we need to pass in. So remember that all this stuff is from a ticket. All this, well, not these two, but the rest of this information is from a ticket. So we need to have a ticket that we can reference to pass into here. So the way we're going to do this is we're not going to use any tickets from this list. We're going to create some more state that's going to hold a ticket. So basically this is going to be like our current ticket, the ticket that we want to look at. Okay. So this can be set pretty much to anything. So I'm just going to set it to start off with as just an empty object. Okay. So that's what this is going to do. This is our ticket. So let's come down here to our ticket form and start filling in these props. So if we go back to our ticket form, we need ID, a summary, priority, status, create date, and update date. And then we'll fill in those last two when we get there. So the first thing is an ID. So we're going to use our ticket, which we just created the state for, this ticket, and we're going to set it to ID, set it to the ID from that ticket. And then we're going to do the same for the rest of the props here. So when we get to this create date, it's going to be a little different because we need to be able to pass in a date. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to basically check if the created date on this ticket is not null, and if it's not null, then we'll go ahead and pass in a new date from this ticket. But if it is null, we just want to pass in a new date from today. So like today's date. All right. So the way we'll do this is we'll say ticket dot create date. So we're going to say, is this null? If it is, we're going to use this question mark, and we'll say new date, and then we'll pass in the create date from the ticket. And if it is null, then we just want to pass in a new date. All right. So this syntax basically says, is this true? Is this an actual value? So what this syntax is basically saying says, is this create date null? If it's not null, then we want to create a new date using it. But if it is null, on the other side of this, we're going to say then just create a new date because we can't create a date off a null value. Okay, so that's what that's going to do. And then we're going to do the same thing for update date. All right, and now I have saved it, and here it goes. Same thing for update date. All right, so this should handle all of the props for our actual ticket. But if you remember, we have a couple of other props here that we need to establish. So since we're doing we're trying to create a ticket, we want this read only to be false. So back in our app.js file, there's two ways we can do this. We can either just not specify the read only, because as you can see, the default value is false. So if we don't put it in, it'll just interpret that as it being false. Or we can come in here and we can say read only and then set that equal to false. All right, so I'm going to do it this way just to be as verbose as possible. And then the last thing we need is an on submit function. So let's type that in, on submit. And when we submit this form, we want to send a request to create a ticket. So the way we'll do this is we'll pass in a function that we're about to create that will send the create request to our backend code. So I'll call it send create request. All right, so this is going to be our function. So I'm going to go up here underneath our get all tickets, and I'm going to create this function. So we're going to call it send create request. It's going to be an asynchronous function. So inside of here, we need to go ahead and create our function. So we want to send a request for our ticket. So the first thing we need to do is remember that when we're calling this function, we're going to get passed in all the information from our form. So if we go back to our ticket form and we scroll to the bottom, when we call on submit, we're passing in all of this information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to our app.js file. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to remove the T's in front of these. All right, and then I'm going to change these create dates to match what our ticket fields names are. Our ticket has fields that are named like this, so we want to use that. All right, so when we pass this in, these are all of the things we're getting back from our form. We want to create a new ticket and send that ticket off in a request to be created using our API. So we're going to say const um, created ticket. Then we're going to set this equal to our create ticket function, which we haven't imported yet. So up here in our ticket service, we want to pull in our create ticket function. So we're going to have this function coming from our ticket service that we're going to use right here in our send create request function. So inside of here, we need to pass in a ticket. So our ticket is basically just those values from here. So we're just going to say that and paste it in here. So now we have our ticket values in. So we're going to create a ticket. We're going to send off this ticket. And if it gets created, then we will get a ticket back. But if it fails, remember we just added in our ticket service right here. So if it fails to create it, we'll get null back. So that's all we need to check for. So we can say if not created ticket. So if the created ticket doesn't exist, if it is null, then we just want to return from this function. We don't want to do anything else. But if it is created and we have a ticket, then what we want to do is we're going to call get all tickets again. This is going to reload all of our tickets in the UI, so our new ticket gets added to that list. Because remember this get all tickets goes to the database and grabs all the tickets, so we should see our new ticket when we pull the new request if it actually got created. And then the last thing we want to do is set the ticket, the current ticket that we're on. So remember this ticket state. So we want to set this ticket so that in this ticket form we get the ID now. Because remember when we created the ticket, the ID is nothing because the ticket hasn't been created yet. So once we create the ticket, we want to display the ID in the form. So we'll do that by setting the ticket here. So we'll set the created ticket. Nope, set created ticket. All right, and this will put the created ticket in that ticket, which will update this form, and it'll pass in the ID, and we should see the ID pop up when we create our ticket. All right. I think this is it. We should be able to run this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my backend code. I'm going to start it up. I'm going to say node server.js. That cranks it up. I'm going to go to the front end code. I'm going to run npm run start, and that should crank up my development server. All right, so now we see this ticket that we created last time, and here's our ugly form. We're going to style this later, but right now we're just trying to make sure it works. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pass in something here. So this is going to be my summary, just something. Let's pass in a medium, and we'll leave that as created. The create date and the update date are already saved there. And as I can see, we have a typo. I need to change that to update date, but for right now, we're not going to do that. Let's hit submit. Looks like we have a problem. I hit submit, nothing happened. So I have found the issue. The issue is here in our app.js file. Inside of our send create request, I forgot to await this create ticket. So see there, we need to await that create ticket. So now I've deleted out the old tickets that I had, and let's do another one, and we'll do something, and we'll set it to in progress. There we go. So now we see the ID pops up, is 2, and we have all the values here. So, yep, had a little typo. Forgot to await this create ticket. And now that we have done that, it is working just fine. So now we can create tickets that say anything. So anything, we'll set it to a medium. We'll set it to rejected. I don't know why we do that, but there we go. Boom, sets the ticket ID here. So now we're good. All right, so that's pretty much it for this video. Uh, Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel and all that jazz. And I will see you guys in the next